Most people still think that franchising is all about buying a unit or a territory. It's not. It hasn't been that for a while, but most people haven't caught up yet. What franchising has become is a platform for building enterprise value. And if you don't understand that shift, you can still build something that works, but never becomes very valuable. I'm George Knauf, franchise investment strategist, and what I'm seeing right now across the industry is one of the biggest shifts that I've seen in 30 plus years. This week was the multi-unit franchising conference in Las Vegas. And when you're in those rooms, you get a very different perspective than what most people see online. Online, the conversation is still, what's the best franchise to buy? Or how much can I make? Or can I run this semi-absentee? But inside that room, that's not what those serious operators are talking about. They're talking about building leadership teams, creating infrastructure that scales, accessing capital and structuring for acquisition and positioning for exits. That's not small business thinking. That's not even traditional franchising thinking. That's what I call enterprise franchising. For years, franchising followed a very predictable path. You bought a unit, you learned the system, you added another unit, then maybe another. Maybe you became a collector of units. And for a long time that worked. Operators built income, supported their families, built an asset that they could sell. But there's a ceiling to that model, and most people don't realize it until they hit it. Because if everything depends on you, if your location needs your attention, if your team can't operate without you, you don't own a scalable business. You own a job. And it might be a good job. It might make money. But it's not something that scales efficiently, attracts capital, or commands a premium valuation. What the best operators have figured out is that franchising isn't about units anymore. It's about building systems that replicate, teams that execute, and infrastructure that supports growth. Because that's what creates enterprise value. And this is where private equity comes into the equation. Private equity doesn't buy effort. They don't care how hard you worked to build your locations. They primarily care about 5 things: predictability, scalability, leadership depth, clean financials, and operational independence. In other words, they buy businesses that can grow without the founder. So here's what matters. Franchising is no longer about how many units do I have. It's about what have I built that someone else would pay a premium for. That's a completely different lens. And this is where franchise buyers often fail. They focus on brand recognition, initial returns, simplicity, comfort. Often, if they're just a raving fan of the product or service. Instead of asking, can this scale across markets? Can I build a leadership team around this? Can I operate this without me? Would this brand or asset attract institutional capital? Those are questions that lead to enterprise value. This is exactly why I built what I call the franchise investment filter. Because before you buy anything, you should be evaluating scalability, leadership transferability, economic leverage, system maturity, and exit alignment. If a concept doesn't pass that filter, you're not building a portfolio, you're building that job. And here's where this is going. Over the next 5 to 10 years, you're going to see more consolidation, more multi-brand portfolios, more private equity entering franchising in the franchisee space, and more operators building platforms, not just locations. And the gap between operators and portfolio builders is going to get very wide. See, the rules have changed in the past 20 years. The old style franchise candidate was often somebody in the twilight of their career who wanted a little extra money in retirement. They intended to build something small. Today, we see a huge migration of the best and brightest from corporate America into ownership. It's the largest movement in history from employment to ownership. These people bring serious skill sets and don't want to build small businesses. They want to build empires. So if you're looking at franchising right now, you have a choice. You can play the old game, buy a unit, add a few more, work hard, make a living, or you can play the new game. Build a franchise portfolio designed for enterprise value and private equity exit. That's enterprise franchising. And the people who understand it early are going to build something very different. I'm George Knauf, franchise investment strategist, and this is how I think about franchising.